We're here at Marshall Park in uptown Charlotte, which has been the setting for many TV shows and movies. This season on Below the Line, we will take you to some actual locations used for commercials, movies, and TV shows in this area. And we'll talk to Below the Line crew workers who work on these projects, like David Svenson. Find out who he is and what he does. Next on Below the Line on Location.
It's Below the Line with George Peroulas. On tonight's show,
Today we're on location in Marshall Park in uptown Charlotte, one of many center city areas used for filming. Joining me now is a man with steady hands that keeps the camera moving as smooth as silk. Please welcome Steadicam operator David Svenson. David, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Now, major motion pictures have filmed here. Shallow Hal filmed here, The Ultimate Gift, other independent features and student projects, and most recently the Showtime TV series Homeland filmed here. Very crucial storyline plot at the end of season 1. So why do you think that producers and directors want to come to this area and film?
Well, we've got a great crew base here. We've got a lot of long-time folks that have been doing their thing for a good long while and very good at their craft. And it's just, you can't beat the area. It's beautiful here.
How did you begin in the industry?
When I was about 8, my folks worked at a retail bookstore, and they were going down to do their holiday advertising at a local TV station. And they gave me the option of staying home with a sitter or going to a TV station and watching them do what they do. I opted to go to the station, and little did I know it was going to change my future. I saw the camera guys doing what they were doing, and the directors doing what they were doing, and the audio folks, and the lighting guys, and I got roped in pretty much immediately.
And you did that for how long?
Well, at that time I was 8, so I was young, and so from the time I was 8 till I was in high school, of course, at that time I'm dating myself, there was no internet, so anything that research-wise that I could do, I would do. And I was in 10th grade in my drama class, and my drama teacher had a guest in for the day, and while I was up at the pencil sharpener next to her desk, the producer asked her, "Hey, do you have any of your students, we need a kid to play a dead kid in one of our organ donation films." And of course my hand shot up about as quickly as I could. I'll do whatever. And so as I wasn't lying on a gurney being a dead kid in an organ donation film, my head would pop up at cut, and I would look around at the lighting guy and the director and the camera guy and the audio person, and I immediately was like a dog. What can I do for you guys? Is there anything I can do? So I tagged along and did some intern things with them, and then started working for them part-time over the summers during school.
You were exposed to a lot of these things at a young age. How did you decide to work with cameras?
At that time, at that company, one of the producers took me aside in her office one day and said, "Hey, you need to, at some point in your next couple of years, you're going to have to make a choice of what you want to do, whether you want to move toward directing, if you want to move toward camera, if you want to move toward lighting. You kind of need to specialize yourself a little bit." And I chose the camera department, and it kind of chose me because it's definitely my passion.
Now, you were doing traditional camera work with tripods and dollies and off-the-shoulder shots, and now your specialty is working with Steadicam. How did you first learn about the Steadicam?
At the time, like you mentioned, we were doing everything from dollies to sticks to, we weren't even getting into jibs at that point. And this was right when the DVDs for films were starting to come out that had the behind-the-scenes things on them. So of course you turn on a DVD and the first thing you see is, "Hey, how'd they make this picture?" Well, I'm zoned in like a hawk on all the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I'd see this guy running around in this thing, and I was like, it kind of mesmerized me. And so as soon as doing a little research and finding out more about what that thing was and what it did, at that time we were doing a lot of handheld stuff and a lot of just what can we do to add production value to our projects. So when I saw this, I got the bug, and I had to do a little research and find out more about it.
So this is the Steadicam. What does it do and how does it work?
Steadicam is a stabilization unit. It's not a camera per se. So The system is pretty much from here down. You can put whatever camera body on it that you want to. The Steadicams, they run the range. There are probably 10 models as of late. And they run the range from what type of and weight camera you're going to put on and what the needs are that you have for this camera, whether it's 12 volt, 24 volt, whether it's 30 pounds or 4 pounds. People are doing a lot of DSLR type work on cameras these days, and so you are gearing your system toward what the camera is that you're using.
For example, this camera, how much does it weigh and what does it do?
This is, of course, a video camera. It weighs roughly mid-20s, upper 20s if you put a follow focus system, a couple wireless units on it, any battery that you need to power any of your accessories. A film camera could weigh anywhere from mid-20s up to, if we go into BL4 world, somewhere up in the 40s easily.
Now, as technology changes and cameras get smaller and smaller, you mentioned the DSLR cameras. Do those go on this as well?
If you want to, yeah, you can put those on here. This system and this arm that we'll see in a little bit is geared toward about 18 pounds and up. So if I wanted to put a DSLR on this, as you'll see from some pictures that I've given you, I put a weight cage on here that weighs about 18 pounds. That gets me that 18 pounds that I need to make the system function. And then I put a camera in it that takes me, and accessories from some of the pictures that you have, that will give you an example of how you bring it up to the weight range that you need it to be in. On the system, you're supporting the camera with an arm, but the arm has to go into something to support it, to keep it on your body, and the vest is how you do that. On the vest, you have what's called a socket block, which the arm attaches into. The arm comes out, comes around, and attaches into this pin. So it allows you to support, in this case, 60 some odd pounds on your body without having to just sit there and hold it as you're walking or doing whatever you're doing for the shot.
So I guess you got to stay in shape to deal with all of this and lifting it and carrying it and moving it around. What's your secret?
Don't my wife, because she'll laugh when you say that. Earlier in my career, I was much more, should I say, pursuing that on a, and that's kind of a misnomer, because Steadicam, the more you get into it, you think of, when you see somebody running around with this big thing on a set, you think of them being this big burly guy. And yes, it is physically demanding to lug this around for a long day with a heavy camera. But the longer I do it, the more I realize that it is so much more finesse and technique than it is, physical brute strength.
Do women work with the Steadicam?
Yes, there are a number of great operators out there. I think the one that everybody thinks of that is doing the biggest work that people know of is a lady by the name of Liz Ziegler, and she's worked on a number of great projects and does excellent work. And
how long have you been working with this kind of equipment?
I'm right at around the 15-year mark right now, and it's the technology has changed a little bit, but the premises have always remained the same, and it's a very fun line of work to do. I'm super blessed to do something that I really love doing.
Why do you keep doing this?
Because I love it. I've been a moving camera junkie since I first saw this thing, and I'm just super blessed to do what I do for a living, and I have just. It's a great thing to work in an environment and to find something as you go along in your career that you find something that you have such a passion for, and I'm fortunate to have found that.
Very good. Coming up next, find out about training programs you can attend and the costs involved in starting your own Steadicam business. Stay with us. We're talking with cinematographer and Steadicam operator David Svenson. Now, David, are there specific education and training programs teaching how to use the Steadicam?
Yeah, if people want to learn how to do this, there are a bunch of different ways you can. The most well-known ones are workshops that are put on by a couple different organizations. Tiffin, the people that make this system, host 2 major ones a year. An Operators Association, the SOA, the Steadicam Operators Association, holds 2 a year. Rockport, Maine puts on a couple.
What is the average cost to attend these classes and seminars, and how many days do they last?
You have 3-day workshops, you have 5-day workshops. They range in cost based on what you're doing and where you're going. But they're great, and if you're going to learn to do this, yes, you can go purchase one and go run around in your yard and shoot your dog and your neighbors and your wife or spouse or whatever. But it really pays to go to a workshop someplace and really learn some in-depth training on. There's so many, over 30 years of Steadicam since it's been invented, there are a lot of tricks and tips and lore and things that I've been teaching at these workshops for well over 10 years now, and I learn something every time I go to one based on something that a coworker at some point says. And when I was in this situation, I did X, Y, Z, and I go, never thought about doing it that way. You learn a ton by going to a workshop if you're really interested in doing this.
And what do these workshops run, cost-wise?
5-day workshops, 6-day workshops, if you will, run mid-2000s. 3-day workshops may run half that, of course. But there are a number of different ways that you can go to workshops. They are pricey, but they are well worth it.
And you mentioned that you also teach. How did you get involved in teaching?
Oh my goodness! After I'd been to 4 or 5 workshops as a student, and I hate to admit that, but every time I'd go, I kept learning more, and I'd learn something else, and I'd learn something different than I didn't pick up on the second and the third time I was at these workshops. And the more I kept getting into it, and the more I kept learning, the more I wanted to go out and express that and tell somebody else that. I was like, hey, guess what I learned last week at this something, And at one point, I was going to a wedding up in just outside of Philadelphia, and it happened to be at the same location as I'd been to one of these workshops, and I knew that Garrett Brown had been, who lives in that neck of the woods, the inventor, who was hosting a lot of these workshops, or the lead instructor at a lot of these workshops. And so I called him and said, hey, can I stop by your office and ask you a couple questions? He was like, sure, man, whatever. He's the greatest guy. And as I was sitting there asking him a bunch of questions about some projects that I'd been working on and situations I was facing, I said, I really want to, at some point, get into the teaching phase of doing this. And he said, it was the old adage, don't ask for something because you just might get it. And as we talked about it further, literally he called me a couple of months later and said, one of our instructors got a film, a feature gig, can't do the workshop. How would you like to come along and be one of our, assist the first time? And then from there on, I have been doing it and loving it ever since.
If I was to go out and buy a Steadicam package, what are the cost ranges for getting something as a basic unit or even the high-end stuff? What do they run nowadays?
Now remember, Steadicams are geared toward the cameras that you're going to use. This system right here, I hate to admit this system here that is geared toward this weight range of camera is a little bit over $60,000. They are costly.
$60,000.
And that's without follow focus, that's just a basic vest arm sled system. Mm-hmm. Now, you can buy a system that is for a smaller weight range camera, like a DV cam or a DSLR or one of those kind of things, for as low as, from the Tiffin products, as low as, mid-eights, $6,000 to $8,000. You can go online and find other systems, used systems. There are always just ways out there to find those kind of things. But the system weight ranges go from anywhere from 5 to 12 to 15 pounds, all the way up to 70 some odd pounds. Like this system is geared toward weight range wise of camera that you're using. So the price range goes from, and there are other manufacturers out there that make things that are even cheaper than that, that do the same functionality. The great thing about some of the Tiffin products, as well as Pro and some of the other larger systems, is just they've been so well crafted and so well thought out. Just the stage alone, when you're having to balance, it actually, there are motorized stages, there are just ways of making your job a lot easier. Like, for instance, Tiffin kind of prides itself on being a toolless system. If I'm in the field and I'm doing a lens change, or if I'm adding a wireless unit, or I'm doing something that is going to change my weight capacity or the system a lot, I can literally just get on the arm and tweak a knob on the arm, and it changes the weight range that I'm using on the system, instead of having to break out an Allen wrench and, excuse me, I'm sorry, I know this is timely, I'll be right with you, hold on, you tweak it, boom, I can do it on the fly. It's awesome, it's great. But there are a lot of great systems out there. The price ranges are, that $6,000 to $60,000 range.
What advice do you give to the up-and-comers?
I would find an operator somewhere in your hometown or whatever, and I have people call me relatively often or email me and say, hey, I've seen you at a workshop, I've seen you come to our class and talk about this. I think I'm interested in doing it. How do I get along with, how do I proceed? Go out with somebody and watch them do what they do and learn as much as you can learn about it before you go buy a system, before you go to a workshop. Try to find somebody who does it, pick their brain a little bit and find out what they do and how much, what they like and what they don't like about doing what they do for a living. But always go out and do your research before you just go buy a system. But you're either going to get in. We have people that come to workshops all the time, and there are two kinds of people. Either you get in this thing and you love it, or you get in and you're like, okay, that's enough. I don't need to be doing that. You find out really quickly because it is physically taxing a little bit, and it's a costly thing to get into at times. But it is a joy for me.
What do you have coming up next?
This time of year there are a lot of commercial things going on. Independent features are always coming into town, and you kind of have to, being a freelancer, you're waiting on that phone to ring. You live by your cell phone, and if you have an office phone, you buy the same way.
I hear you.
Yeah, and so depending on commercial work, industrials, a lot of walk-in talks. I've been very blessed to have a couple good relationships with some long-term clients that have a pretty diverse base throughout the year. So it's been a good thing.
Well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you showing us your Steadicam and how it works, and we wish you huge success this year.
Well, thank you.
Coming up next, we go back to the studio for a special announcement. One of the show's devoted crew members is production assistant Nolan Collins, and Nolan has an announcement.
That's right, George. I'll be moving to Los Angeles. I'll be looking to get some writing jobs, some production jobs, and just enjoy the Southern California weather.
Well, we're sad to see you go, and you've been such a huge part of making this show the success that it is. But I've had some ideas, and we're not going to let you leave the show just like that. Since you're going to Hollywood, the entertainment capital of the world, we have asked Nolan to be our eyes and ears out there, right?
That's right, George. I'll be doing various segments from Los Angeles about the TV and film things that are going on, as well as being your tour guide to some of the tourist spots out in Los Angeles, because a lot of people go out there and they wonder what it's like. And I took a trip a little while ago, and I had a great time, and then I came back here, got my moving plan in order, and then I'll be heading that way.
Well, very good. We look forward to your reports throughout the season. But before you go, I want to tell the audience a little bit about you and some of the things that you've done. Now, you've worked in film and TV and created your own projects with your own company, right?
Yes, that's right. I started about 5 years ago, like everybody does, making little short films with my friends and things like that. And since then, I've moved up and tried to make better and better projects. And I ended up getting with a fellow film student at the University of South Carolina. We made a few projects, and we went all the way up to making a narrative short film that we recently put up online. It was all under the umbrella of my company, Monochrome Hippo Productions.
How did you come up with the name Monochrome Hippo Productions?
Well, one of the very first things I ever shot, George, was my friend and I were just shooting some random things to test out our camera and editing software for a project we were doing in English class. And one of those things was this zoom in of a hippo. We had a toy hippo, and we zoomed way far in on it so you couldn't tell it was a hippo. Then we slowly zoomed out, and the hippo came into focus. And in the editing software, we put a monochrome effect on it, and then Monochrome Hippo Productions was born.
And what are some of the stories you like writing about?
My best script is actually about a hitman, and it's an action thriller. I've also done some comedies and written a few horror shorts. But I really like writing about hitmen because I like the psychology that goes into it, about someone who's so cold and detached that they would do that for a living. And I also like exploring the double life that they have to live when they're hiding their job from their loved ones and friends.
And you brought some work to show us. What do you have today?
I actually have a short film that my friend and I made, and we wanted to make a hitman movie, but we didn't have much budget. Well, we didn't have any budget, and so we didn't really think we could make a hitman movie. And so we decided to make a movie about trying to make a hitman movie. And it's called a killer movie.
Very good. How long is the entire short film?
It's about 25 minutes, including the credits and everything, and you can see it and some of my other videos, some of my photos, and some writing samples on my website, monochromehippo.com.
Why did you pursue this as a career?
Well, when I started making videos with my friends, it was sort of a hobby, something I kind of liked. But as I did it more and more, and I got on real movie sets and worked with real cameras and sound people and things like that, I just fell in love with the process, and I enjoy it so much that I figured it was a dream of mine if I could do that as a career.
Very good. I know all of us here at the show will miss you, and we're going to look forward to your reports from Los Angeles. Since you'll be the below-the-line production assistant in Los Angeles, we're going to call his segment the BTLPA in LA. Safe travels, Nolan, and we look forward to your reports.
Thank you, George.
All right. More coming up right after this. Thanks again to David Svenson, and thank you for watching. Please feel free to contact us with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The email address is belowtheline21@gmail.com, and join our fan page on Facebook. Remember, keep watching to see our very own Nolan Collins reporting from Los Angeles with his Below the Line PA and LA reports. We'll see you next time.
For more information, comments, or questions about the show, email us at belowtheline21@gmail.com.